There's been one situation where I felt genuinely hurt by something someone said online, and it just struck something inside me. Welcome back to the Charm Diaries. My name's Charm, and this is a semi-daily vlog where I talk about the process of me becoming a full-time content creator. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. So please help me out by hitting that subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today I'm going to be talking about creating controversy online. Yes, it's a common thing, I know, everyone loves a bit of controversy. Now, I don't go out of my way to create controversy, but I also don't go out of my way to not create controversy. The interesting thing about the gaming world, which is where I create most of my content, is that it's not very hard to create controversy no matter what stance you take. I've done a couple of videos recently that have generated a little bit of a stir. For example, GTA 6 recently came out, and instead of doing what everyone else did and just doing a reaction to the trailer and a analysis of the trailer, there's lots of people out there that can do that much better than me, that know Rockstar much better than me, that know GTA much better than me. I thought I would look at the trailer, or at least try to look at it objectively. So I compared it to something that maybe I'm a bit more familiar with, which is movie trailers. So I took trailer 1 of GTA 6 and I took trailer 1 of The Dark Knight. I thought there was lots of comparables between the two, and I thought it would make a good video. Both trailers were very hyped, both were from a series, both existed in a fictional universe, both came from studios or directors that were known quantities and had big expectations around them. I thought they were fair comparisons, but apparently I'm an idiot for even making a comparison between the two. There were some fair points that actually the way video games promote things, trailer 1 is always more of a teaser, something I hadn't really considered, and the fact that every other video game company essentially does the same thing. But for me, it doesn't really make a difference. I was comparing trailer 1 to trailer 1, and I thought that was a fair comparison, but the backlash, however small, because my audience is fairly small at the moment, the backlash is pretty ridiculous, and people feel very strongly about this. For me, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Creating controversy in advertising and marketing has been something that's been around for a long time. There are some companies, for example, that will actively create an ad that they know is going to get banned because the free PR you get off the back of that is absolutely massive. And that video will inevitably be uploaded online and talked about even more than the TV ad would have been in the first place. Like I said, I'm not going out of my way to create controversy. In fact, that feels really inauthentic to me. When I create content or I'm creating a post, whether that's on YouTube or any other platform, I'm doing it because that's genuinely my opinion. Another one, for example, was Red Dead Redemption 2 versus GTA 5. I felt like Red Dead Redemption 2 was a much better game than GTA 5, and for obvious reasons. I was fair about it. I said that Red Dead Redemption 2 was created about 5 years later, that it felt like GTA 5 was the platform that they built on top of to create a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, and that playing GTA 5, having already played Red Dead Redemption 2, felt like a step down to me. Now, because I'm so new to this, I'm playing games out of order, I'm playing older games, I'm making opinions based on purely what I think, not based on nostalgia. It's a bit like when people go to watch the new Star Wars films, for example. I will always go and watch a Star Wars film or a Star Wars series because I love the original trilogy and I've got a lot of nostalgia for it, so they get a lot of passes from me just because I'm a fan of it. And I think the same is true of Rockstar and the GTA franchises, that people feel very strongly about it and will defend it to the end of the earth. I still think it was a fairly blur first trailer. I saw Limmy's reaction to it, and Limmy said it's just a big cutscene, and that's pretty much how I felt. Like, just because every video game company does that doesn't mean it needs to be that way all the time. A video game company could come out with a trailer 1 being a much more expansive look at the game, but maybe it's because they're being forced into releasing stuff earlier and earlier. Maybe they want to get stuff out there quicker, even though it's not necessarily fully ready. I don't know whether the story's fully fleshed out. I would expect it to be at this point, with the game being released in, maybe the next 12 to 18 months. But who knows their reasons for doing that. Obviously, when I'm creating content, it does go through my mind whether this post will create any controversy. I don't mind the controversy happening, because somebody commenting saying they don't like my post is exactly the same as somebody commenting saying they do like their post. One might hurt my feelings and one might inflate my ego, but in terms of engagement, it's the same thing. This is why you see so many content creators creating content that they know is going to cause a bit of a ruckus online, because the engagement is what they're looking for and the numbers is what they're looking for. But this exists everywhere. Look at politics. Look at someone like Donald Trump. He is saying things that I don't know whether he really believes what he's saying, but he's saying things because he knows he gets a reaction, he knows it gets publicity, it gets him in front of people. There will be a section of people that agree with what he's saying. I don't know necessarily whether he believes that. So what I'm trying to do when I create content is say things and produce things that I really believe in, and I hope that that resonates and finds an audience. I know there's always going to be people that disagree with me. I know there's always going to be people that come into my post and say, you're bold. I know there's going to be people that come into my post and say, you look like Walter White. I don't really care about all of that. There's been one situation where I felt genuinely hurt by something someone said online, and it just struck something inside me. And that was a situation where I had done a post. Someone had called me Walter White. In fact, it links back to that. Someone had called me Walter White, and I had replied to that comment with a video, like pretending to be Walter White, or I had replied saying, replied in a funny way, showing I wasn't really offended by it, but just kind of accepting the comment and playing into it and leaning into it a little bit. And somebody just commented saying something like, you'll never have a successful career because you're simply so dull. And I thought, f***ing hell, that is a deep cut, man. You've really gone in on me there. And obviously there's some kind of insecurity in me there where I go, I don't feel like I'm dull. Am I dull? Am I boring? Is this why it's taking longer to get to the follower numbers I want? Is that why I'm not getting engagement? Is it because I'm dull? I did a reply to that post, which I shouldn't have done. I replied to it and I engaged with it, and I should have just ignored it, and it ended up being a little bit of a back and forth. And that was the moment that I realised I'd seen so many people, so many content creators using comments, whether they be hate comments, generally it's hate comments, right, on platforms, and using those comments to create the next piece of content. And it just constantly seemed like this cycle of negativity, where it's like I get a negative comment, I reply to that comment with a video, they comment again, I reply to that one, someone else comments something negative, and the more you reply to it, the more you invite that negativity and those negative comments into your world. And I realized at that point, when I started this little exchange with someone, it's just a kid, right? It's just some 18-year-old. Doesn't excuse what they did, because it was rude and it was hurtful. I hadn't done anything to this person when they sent that comment. It was quite a hurtful comment, but my reaction to it was unnecessary. I could have ignored it and it'd have gone away. The more you interact with that, the more you get that kind of thing, because what they're looking for is your energy, your time, your interaction. People will do it to see if they can get a reply. If you don't reply, people will stop doing it. So I realized at that point that I wasn't going to actively seek out controversy, and I wasn't going to actively seek out replying to hateful comments. I'll always reply to questions. Sometimes I'll do video replies. If people ask me genuine questions, if people put critique that is genuine, so for example on the GTA 5 video, there were some people that were coming in the comments that were making actually good points. So I will always go back to those, because I think that is an interesting piece of content. But replying to the hateful stuff, I realised at that point, I'm not going to seek out controversy. I'm not going to engage with this hateful stuff. I'm not going to reply to it, because it's just pouring that energy into it. And there is a real risk, I think, regardless of how much you say to yourself, but these are just online comments, these are just trolls. I'm not going to be hurt by that, because I know it's not true. Everybody has insecurities. Everybody has things where it can just touch a nerve, where you're like, maybe that's true. Maybe what they're saying is true. This is the risk with creativity, right? Putting creative projects out into the world. If you put them out early, which is the norm with social media, it's all about quick turnaround. It's about having an idea and about producing it. But sometimes if you put something out into the world and it's not quite ready, it only takes the slightest thing just to beat it out of you. it's interesting to me that other content creators, that person who sent that comment to me, they were young, but they had a decent audience. They you know, they'd obviously built an audience with a specific niche. They know how much work goes into producing content at scale, not just one post a month or 2 posts a month, but you know, 3 or 4 posts a day sometimes. They know how much it takes to create that. So why would you go into someone else's comments and like try and beat them down? I mean, that says something about that person, right? But it also says something about me that I replied. So the controversy thing is an interesting thing, but I'm not interested in actively engaging in that. I want to produce stuff that's fun and funny and positive and interesting to me. I don't want to go out there to incite any kind of hatred, certainly not aimed at me, because it's like having a friend with benefits, right? We're just going to do this thing, but we're not going to have feelings for each other. Someone always gets hurt in that situation, and it'll end up being me in the content situation. If I go down the route of saying, I'm going to create content that really divides people and I'm actively going to seek out that controversy, it'll be me that gets hurt, not those other people. I'm positive of it. I know that's going to happen. But it's an interesting thing to think about. The other thing I've started to mess about with, I came across a content creator the other day that was doing a lot of gaming news, and I thought it was an interesting layer. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. I hadn't really thought about how I would consume that information efficiently, how I would get the actual information to be able to put out on social media. But I've put a couple of things in place now where I should have a fairly consistent feed of news around gaming, around specific consoles, and I should be able to take that and turn it into video content. So what I'm looking at doing is kind of consuming news from various sources and then creating video content around that. So as well as the gameplay stuff that you're seeing at the moment, hopefully you'll start to see more gaming news and that kind of thing as well. And hopefully that'll be a different type of audience. Hopefully I'll be able to introduce things to people that maybe haven't seen yet or heard of. It's always interesting when you look at that type of content, that's the more news-based content, the more informative-based content as opposed to gameplay stuff, is that everyone is taking that information from somewhere, right? Whether it's coming from the source, like it's news from the PlayStation website or the Xbox website. If not, you're taking it from a third party that is one removed from that. So, you know, sites like IGN or gaming news sites, any gaming news sites, they're getting the content from their sources within the organization. You're then taking that content and creating video content off the back of it. It's all a bit kind of taken from other places, and you're adding your own spin and you're adding your own opinions. There's a great book by Austin Kleon, I think it's Austin Kleon, called Great Art is Steel, I think it's called. And that talked a lot about taking ideas from other people and adding your spin to it, adding your flair to it, and that's a great thing. He does loads of great stuff where he'll take big news articles and he'll black out some of the words so it starts to read in a different way and creates new sentences and poems and stuff and that kind of stuff. I just think that's a really interesting thing to be able to take content from other places and add your stuff into it. So there's lots of ideas, we've got lots of things going on that hopefully will start to come into fruition over the next couple of months. But I've just had this idea around these controversial in inverted commas posts that sometimes I will create, but wanted to be clear that I'm not actively seeking controversy. I'm just trying to give my opinions. As someone who's maybe slightly more objective in the gaming world, just because I'm newer to it, maybe there are opinions that I have that people think are stupid because they've been wired to think a specific way about how games should be released, how games should be advertised. I've also got a lot of experience in the marketing and advertising world. You know, I've spent over 10 years creating strategies and advertising products, and so I do have some insight into how that stuff works. I've read a lot of books on the psychology of marketing and how people think. So I do have some insight into that kind of stuff. So when I'm comparing, when I'm looking at how a game is marketed or advertised, it's not without some thought process behind it. You know, mainly thinking about, okay, if this was me, if I was in that position as the marketing manager or the marketing director of that game release, what would I do? What are the things that I'd be doing? Anyway, that's today's post from the Charm Diaries. Like I said, I really appreciate your support. If you can hit that subscribe button, very little risk to you, but huge benefit to me if you hit that subscribe button. All it means is you might get notifications and my content might come up in your feed a little bit more. So if you're finding this stuff interesting, please do hit that follow button, the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.